Hi, I'm Andy Powers. In this video, we're going to talk about what a four-seam fastball is, what a two-seam fastball is, what they're supposed to do, and how to throw them. I'll see you in a second. Okay, so the four-seam fastball and the two-seam fastball. Four-seam fastball is probably the most basic pitch that every single player, regardless of any age group they are, learns how to throw. And the idea behind it is to be able to throw an accurate throw, whether you're delivering a pitch or throwing it across the infield. So what we're going to talk about is the difference between the four-seam and the two-seam, why are they called a four-seam and a two-seam, and how to throw them. So the very first thing we want to start off with is the four-seam fastball. So why is it called a four-seam fastball? Now, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but it's amazing to me actually in the conversations I have how people really don't even know why it has the name that it has. So let's just start off with this seam right here. What you're doing when you're throwing the four-seam fastball, the most common way is that a guy is sitting there with the big horseshoe and he's taking his two fingers and he's throwing them across. He's going across the seams. Well, when he's doing that, as the ball comes off of his fingers, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, and then 4 seams as it's rotating at you. That's the four-seam fastball. That's why it's called the four-seam fastball. Now, the key to the four-seam fastball is, like I said a little earlier, that the idea behind it is to be an accurate throw. A four-seam fastball is designed to go straight. So if you're delivering a pitch and you're throwing a four-seam fastball, most guys are going to be able to throw this thing straight. It's not going to have much movement. It's going to go right to where you want it to go. A lot of guys, too, are able to throw the four-seam a little bit harder than they are their two-seam. But it is a straighter pitch, so you need to know and take that into account. When we're throwing the four-seam fastball, as you're coming through on the pitch, you want to have your wrist, your hand, directly over your wrist as you're throwing it, okay? So it's going to be stacked right on top of it so that you can come straight, more down through that pitch. And that's the four-seam fastball. What's a two-seam fastball? Well, when you've got the two-seam fastball, you take, the smaller part of the ball, the little inside part, you're taking your fingers, and some guys like to go on the inside of the ball where their fingers are actually together and they go inside it. I've seen some guys that like to go right on the seams. I've even seen a few guys that like to go right outside of it. But predominantly most guys want to go right inside those two seams. And when you turn around and you throw and you release the pitch, as you let go, you've got 1, 2 seams. And there's your two-seam. The thing about a two-seam fastball is that this is a fastball that's designed to move. It's designed to probably run, if you will, or move to the arm side of the guy throwing. So if you're right-handed, a good two-seam fastball is going to, as it's coming to the hitter, is going to start moving to the right side or in on a right-handed hitter. It may even go down a little bit too. It all depends on pressure points and how you release it. I will say that predominantly too, with most guys, the two-seam fastball is not going to be as hard of a pitch. It's not, the velocity of it is not going to quite be as much. You may have a 90-mile-an-hour four-seam and you may have, an 86, 87-mile-an-hour two-seam. But what you're giving up in some velocity with most guys, you're hoping to make up with movement. So we talked about how the four-seam, the wrist, we want the wrist stacked, or the hand stacked right over our wrist. With the two-seam, it's the same concept, except now as you're coming through, you're just going to tilt it a little bit. You're just going to tilt your wrist. Now, I'm not tilting the whole arm necessarily, but you're just tilting the wrist wherever your arm slot is when you release the ball. So if you're down here, a four-seam, you're still going to have your hand stacked over your wrist, but a two-seam, you're going to be even a little bit more. And the idea is that as this ball comes off your fingers, it's coming off more in this manner. So as the seams start catching the air and resisting, it pushes itself down in that manner, okay? The four-seam you're going to see is going to probably be a whole lot easier to command and control, especially for the guys that are just learning how to pitch or that haven't really thrown two seams very much in their career. But the ability to command a two-seam fastball, guys like Greg Maddux had an unbelievable fastball two-seam where he would throw it in on a left-handed hitter and the guy backs up and it comes right back over into the zone for the strike. When you can really develop the art and feel of a good two-seam fastball, well, it makes it a deadly, deadly pitch for you to have in your arsenal, because it's already hard enough to hit a ball that's moving at them, but it's even harder to have a ball that's moving with some velocity and also changing planes on its way. So I hope that this makes sense to you. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out everything else that I've got in the other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.